and so we have it done. But I would just say hello, everyone. Those who have joined us already, those who are watching us in recording. My name is Anastasia Antonik, and I work for the Norwegian Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce. If you have not seen or have not attended the meeting we had last week, you could also watch it on recording that we will make available online. Last Tuesday, we were talking about the Norwegian market. We talked a little bit about the statistics. We looked at how the Norwegian-Ukrainian bilateral cooperation and trade is doing, what we are trading, both with goods and services. We talked a little bit about who the potential Norwegian partner could be, and talked a little also about the Norwegian consumer, what's important, and what homework the Ukrainian companies should do before they want to enter the Norwegian market, and what they should think about before they start talking and start looking for ways to get into the Norwegian market. Today we continue talking about that, and this first part of this meeting is devoted to sustainability and innovation. Because that's something that the Norwegian consumer will ask. They will ask about where your materials are from. They will ask about how your business strategy is. They want as much transparency as possible, and sustainability is important. This is also something the potential Norwegian partner would ask if it's a store, or you will go into some cooperation with Norwegians. They will also pay a lot of attention to that. So when you come to the foreign market, this is something you should have in place, both in your business strategy, but also through your supply chain. And together with me, we have Rune André Tveit. I met Rune actually last year when we were doing our Young Entrepreneurs program. Sustainability for businesses is something that we talk a lot during that program, because due to all the reasons I just mentioned, we believe that both Ukrainian and Norwegian businesses, when they start cooperation, they should have sustainable elements in place. So we had this beautiful workshop, and we got a lot of good positive feedback. Rune, you can maybe present yourself a little bit more. I just want to say that you have Excalibur Startup Academy, so you work with startups, you work with foreigners in Norway. So I think that your competence and experience would be very interesting for our Ukrainian companies who are looking into expanding their market or looking to cooperation with foreign partners. So I give you approximately 50 minutes, 55 maybe, and the digital floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. So thank you for having me again. Inviting me to talk about sustainability, which is one of my passions. I'm actually essentially two things I'm burning for. One is actually teaching others and conveying knowledge, and another is sustainability. So I kind of find my mission to being aligned with both of them in teaching people how to create sustainable businesses. Because that's what the world needs at this day and age. And as Anastasia said, I was lucky enough to be invited for the program that you had this autumn, where I had a workshop on sustainability and how you can essentially integrate sustainability into your business model. Because what sustainability is, and the Sustainable Development Goals that we're going to be looking into today, is a set of great ideas and great, essentially it's the biggest and potentially very profitable business model, because it encapsulates all the problems that we need to tackle. And you as entrepreneurs or businesses, you're working to solve problems, right? So that's one of the reasons why the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals that we're going to be looking into, is a very good starting point. So I'll start by first talking about my background. So I actually work in an incubator called Charge, where I'm the program manager. And so if you ever think of moving to Norway and or someone you know perhaps, and you have an idea and you want to start a business of your own, then you can apply to our program, and then we can lead you through a 5-month entrepreneurship program. And as Anastasia said, I'm the founder of Excalibur Startup Academy, which delivers courses such as this. We have a web course and we also offer workshops. And I have a master's in innovation entrepreneurship and also a master's in international education, actually. So I have a social science background, not so much natural science, which means that if you have like specific questions related to biology and such, I might not be able to answer, but everything related to entrepreneurship and sustainability and human science related questions, I'm more than willing to answer those. And actually, so my background with sustainability started with a project I did called Better Living Projects, where our work was essentially to create work for women in a community in India. So what we did is that in the state of Bihar, which is one of the states, if not the India, which is struggles the most with poverty, we went to that state and we built a local led and locally owned textile production site for the women there. So it's like purely based on the needs of the women in that local community. And we taught them how to produce textile goods. And then we sold that to Norwegian businesses. So those Norwegian businesses could essentially showcase that they were working to create employment for women in this community in India. So I did that for about 2 years, and that's what led me essentially to do entrepreneurship. And so in this webinar today, my goal is that you will learn about these things. You will learn about the Sustainable Development Goals and the agenda and why they matter. I'll talk a bit about the responsibility of businesses and why sustainability matters for Norwegian consumers. And I'll talk a bit about circular principles and circular business models in the way of like how you essentially the kind of materials you use and you source for your products, and how transports play into it, and essentially your overall CO2 emission footprint and how you can reduce that. So I'll also be sharing a step-by-step process at the end that I hope can be insightful. And please do stop me along the way if you have any questions or make a comment in the comment section. And yeah, but I'd like to start this just really quick, just to get some thoughts. Like, what does the word, when you hear this word sustainability, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you? Anyone want to have a go? Yes, Hannah?
People, profit, planet. Or yes, you can choose your order.
Yeah. That's not fair. You're not the participant, so it's you're one of the speakers, so you need the answer to this question.
Amazing. I agree. The 3 Ps. We'll be coming back to that. But yeah, someone else wants to have a go? No? So it means a lot of, these words means a lot of things to many people, right? And as you said, Hannah, it's the 3 Ps, people, planet, and prosperity, which we'll come back to. But that definitely goes into the core of this, because you need to think about people and the planet, Well, at the same time, you need to be, as a business at least, you need to be able to have enough income so that you can pay your employees and be a profitable business. But Norway's prime minister said the year before I was born in 1987, she said this in a report, that sustainability is to meet the needs and aspirations of the present without compromising the ability to meet those of the future. And I think that's a really encapsulating way of describing it. So, but unfortunately, since then, since 1987, so about 36 years, we know that the emissions have only gone up, unfortunately. Although Gro Harlem Brundtland said that we need to rethink, in this report, we need to rethink how we view economic growth and how we essentially make things, how we sell things, and our overall footprint on the world should, and how we share the resources we have with people, and also enabling people to have jobs, food, energy, water, and sanitation, and so forth. Which is a challenge both because of the environmental crisis and in situations now such as in Ukraine, where you have the war, and that definitely hampers development, unfortunately. So we've seen that the emissions have gone up, and if you just look back, you can see, like, since the dawn of the first industrial revolution, our emissions, which was pretty much, it was very low, it was close to zero, right? And then just in a few centuries, it's just peaked to a stage where it's actually a huge crisis for us. It's an existential crisis, so to speak. And we can see that in the news now, because since 1750 or 1850, actually, the first industrial revolution, the warming of the planet has gone up by 1 degree. So it actually every decade or so, it increases with 0.2 temperatures. So as you can see, that has a huge effect on desertification and on loss of biodiversity, as you can see up in the right-hand corner. And in the left-hand corner, we were losing the Arctic ice. It's melting, which increases the amount of water. And again, this affects the wildfires across many places, like in the US, we've seen recently, and also floods, like the one we recently had in Pakistan, which really has devastating effects on the overall communities. So, and as we know, the war in Ukraine has led to increased emissions, and it will also cost a lot of emission to rebuild Ukraine. And so, as we see, the pandemic had effects on the enrollment of people's enrollment to schools and people's health and so forth, although the CO2 emissions went down because of less traffic, less flight traffic and so forth. But we see that these kind of effects, these political turmoils does affect our climate, and that will only continue to happen, unfortunately, unless we make changes. And the sad news is that Climate Action Tracker has said that there's 95% certainty that we don't reach the 1.5 goal of that the world society has agreed upon in COP 2015. We agreed upon the 1.5 degree pathway, and Climate Action Tracker says that there's a 95% certainty that we won't be able to reach that. As it is now, we're actually on our way to a place close to 2.6 or 3.2 degrees by the end of this century. And this is that's going to make things really difficult when it comes to the polarized melting and also biodiversity loss. We know that already there's been a big loss in the amount of animals and the biodiversity in general that has gone lost over the past few decades alone. The Club of Rome won.
400-800, tak?
Was that?
Sorry, was someone who just joined and there was a noise.
Is there a question or no?
No. You can continue.
All right. So this is it's a bit about the bad news. Let me show you some of the. You can see the full view of this, but this is the environmental Kuznets curve. Kuznets is like an economist who is known actually for his theories on GDP growth and how that affected environmental degradation a few decades ago. But actually, his environmental curve is the opposite, because what this goes to show is that, and I firmly believe that, given new initiatives, new innovation, new technology, and we can see this with the green shift that's currently happening, that if the technology is moving in the right direction, we get more renewable energy. There's more focus on that. There's more focus on circular business models and startups that are specifically working on impact and environment. If we get the amount of technology and innovations at a certain level, we might be lucky enough to see an S curve in terms of emissions. We might be actually, hopefully, by within a decade, maybe less, maybe more, hopefully we'll be able to make a change so that we have enough technology, we have enough initiatives, enough circular businesses that focus specifically on reducing emissions, and we get obviously the politicians on board to join in on this call. Then we might be able to turn things before it's too late. So that's the goal, and that's why we have these goals, the Sustainable Development Goals that you've seen before. So this is something that replaced the Millennium Development Goals in 2015, and they're going to be a roadmap for us up until 2030. So this is the overall goal, and as you can see, there's 17 goals, 169 targets, and 231 unique indicators. So which says a lot, right? It's a lot to encapsulate. The goal we're going to be looking mostly into today is the goal number 12 on responsible consumption and production. But the goals, they can be divided into three. So you have the social pillar, you have the economy pillar, and you have the environmental pillar. So some startups or businesses are working on either one of these, or you might be focusing on different ones. And so if you are focusing on different ones, you have the ones that Hannah mentioned earlier, the people, planet, and prosperity, the 3 Ps. So if you focus on all of these, the social pillar, the economy pillar, and the environmental pillar, you might be having the prosperity and the triple bottom line in your business model, which in many ways is the goal of most businesses today. So it's no longer accepted, at least most places in Norway, unless you're pushing 70. But even them are actually becoming more environmentally aware. So it's no longer enough to just say that you have your double bottom line, so to speak, that you care about the people who are in your company and you care about the profitable company. You also now need to think about like your environmental footprint, which is what we're going to be looking into today. So why does it matter? Okay, let's just jump back here, do one round. Out of these SDGs, which would you focus on, or which are you focusing on currently?
But in chat box said 8, and that's actually something that we in our chamber are also focusing, number 8, because we also try to integrate them in our strategy and work, even though we're not for profit organization, but I think for international organization, 8 is the most relevant.
Yeah, definitely.
17 and 12 says Hannah, and 9, 17 and 12. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure.
Definitely. I guess this is really, both of these are really important now when it comes to rebuilding Ukraine, right? You get the right infrastructure involved and the right innovation, the right industry actors on board, and obviously creating decent work for people and more inclusion, sustainable cities and communities. Yeah. So as you see, like most of these goals, they go hand in hand. And some people, they choose a goal based on their inclinations and what they believe in and what motivates you. So if you don't have like a focus on the SDGs now, what I would recommend is actually choose a goal. So either based on what has the most strategic vantage point for you, what makes the most sense, like from a strategic point of view. And the other is more personal. What actually motivates you? What is it that you're passionate about? And in the project that I mentioned earlier, about the project we did in India, that was number 5. That was our goal that we focused on gender equality. Because actually, what we found in our research and what we were working on is that it actually cost the world economy the same as the US and China's GDP combined every year on the world not being gender equal. So that women don't have the same access to work actually costs the world economy a huge amount of resources. So there's actually a lot of opportunities, financial opportunities, and also a great roadmap to create a better well-being for people in these goals. So, and also after you found the goal, I would also recommend you to look into the indicators or the targets. So basically, you say you find number 8, as you have, Anastasia, and then going into all these like indicators to say like, okay, we're working on this goal, but these indicators. And then if you can, when it comes to communication, letting people know that might not know about the SDGs, letting them know about like why you do it and how you do it. That's really crucial. And I wanted to say one other thing, since a lot of you are working in Ukraine and are working to make your services or make your products available, for example, for the Norwegian market. I would say there's a lot of similarities to what I did with the project I had in India, because I saw that a lot of businesses, they're actually interested in, in your case, there are a lot of Norwegian businesses are interested and dedicated in the Ukrainian cause. They want to help out and help Ukrainians and make sure that they have an interest in actually rebuilding a stronger Ukraine. So actually, if you can sell to Norwegian businesses or to individuals, perhaps with telling a story, then I'm sure many people could actually be interested in purchasing products from you. Because then you actually you can integrate, for example, goal 8 in that, by just saying that you're selling products from Ukraine, or goal 16, So yeah, this is a good way to start to kind of like see how your business can become more responsible. And so back to the question, I was like, why does this goal matter? Well, there's many things, there's many reasons. One is that on a consumer level, they expect you to actually take a stand, to believe in something. Take an example from the US during the demonstrations with the Black Lives Matter movement. We saw that actually Nike, they took a specific stand and shown that they really cared about the cause. And Ben and Jerry's in the US have done the same. When it comes to environment, you see the same with like Patagonia here. They invest a lot in environmental causes. And so on a consumer level, people expect businesses to take a stand and to believe in something. And then they want to be, they have a sense of like a brand loyalty to the businesses. To, as a consumer, when you see that someone you purchase from actually believes in something, oftentimes you have like a loyalty to them. You have like a sense of, you identify with what they stand for and what they do. And obviously economic incentives, it can be really valuable what you do, but it also has to actually save consumer money in the long run. So for example, when we're looking into renewable energy, like Tesla in Norway, we have like, I think it's the biggest market in the world on the amount of people that drive Tesla, and the electrification in Norway is one of it's I dare to say it's the best in like Europe. It's like the highest amount of electrifying industry with essentially transport. So and people, they, you know, some people, they drive Tesla because of status, but obviously, although it's like high electricity prices nowadays, it actually saves you money, right? In the long run, if you're driving an electric car versus having a gasoline car. And it's the same with having solar panels on your rooftop. It actually saves you money, and it's good for the environment. So you have both. So that's something to think of. And another thing is that it's becoming regulated. So nowadays, you're actually expected from the government's point of view to report on your sustainability. So you ought to report on your footprint and what you're doing for the environment and the amount of emissions that you have, especially if you're a bigger company. And you actually have to pay taxes on the CO2 emissions you have. That's a discussions to be had, but as of now, for the bigger companies, in my view, that is too low, the kind of amount that they have to pay for emitting. I think a ton of CO2 costs around 500 kroners per ton, which is like nothing, right? So, or they just increased it actually to 700, but they're planning on being at around 2,500 kroners in 2030. So yeah, it's there is something I can do there. But also now there is something called Åpenhetsloven, which relates to the rights of the employees working in your business. So that actually, and how you source material. So if you're producing something in China, you ought to talk about like how things are produced and the workers' conditions and so forth. And another thing is obviously employee branding. You see now, if you're going to start recruiting people, the businesses in Norway now, they see that when they're recruiting people who are in their 20s, who just entered the job market, or early 30s, for example, they see that there is an increased interest in environmental and the social conscious workers, essentially. So the business has to take that, be aware of that, and essentially has to take a stand, because they want if you want to recruit an employee, they want to also be working at a place where they know that they make a difference. And then another aspect is at least when it comes to circular economy, we see now with the war in Ukraine as well, that there is the whole world economy is increasingly dependent on each other. And you have to source materials from somewhere, and you have to import quite a lot of things. And so from an environmental perspective, if you can produce things locally and you can reuse materials, then you might be less dependent on importing something from elsewhere. But that's a whole other way of thinking. So in producing more locally, you also have like, there's less footprint in it, but there will be also less dependency because you can produce something close to home, so to speak. I know, Anastasia, you mentioned some principles earlier, like last session. These are, I can recommend you, depending on the size of your business, I can recommend you to look into UN Global Compact. They're a big entity and organization for businesses, and you can essentially become a member there, and they have these principles. There's like 10 principles that you can follow on human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. So I can recommend going into their page and read more about what they do. But there is essentially, as a business, and by you seeing how you can produce things better, there are two sides of a business when it comes to responsibility. One is the shadow side, and the other is the sunny side, so to speak. The shadow side being the footprint that you have and how you can reduce your negative footprint, the CO2 emissions you have, and that can also be related to workers' rights, the workers that work in your business. And so when you try to change that, there is actually a lot of opportunities in there. Because as I said, there's actually many opportunities within the environmental sector, and having a focus on that in your business model. Both from like an employee branding perspective, but obviously from acquiring new customers. And there is a new market potential because you see that the market and innovations are pivoting towards a more environmental friendly focus. So there's many ways to go about that. I was asked to give a few examples, and one example in Norway is Ekornes. They're a part of UN Global Compact, and they have encapsulated all these principles in their strategy. So if you go online, you can find their sustainability strategy and how they integrated all these principles. But they're Norway's largest furniture producer, and they have reduced their total CO2 emission by quite a lot since 2014, but they know that they have improvements to make. So they want to increase the recycling rate by 100% within 2030 and reduce the energy use per product with 40% by 2030. And so one example of that is the stressless chair, which is actually based on locally sourced material. And they are highlighting and wanting to have quality products with long durability, because that's more environmental friendly, like producing something that lasts. And then obviously recycling the material. So for example, when it comes to from a circular point of view, it's all about reusing things. So you don't have to produce things like you don't have to produce new things all of the time, because that's one of the reasons why we have so high emissions, is that we produce a lot of things and then we use it. And in the new report, it said that close to 97% of all products are only used once. So no, 93% of products, sorry, 93% of products are only used once. So that means that we have a circularity rate of around 7% in the world. So think of that, right? That of all the products we use, it's mostly one-use type of products. And there's a big potential there in reducing our emissions. And one way of doing that is thinking of disassembly. So how can a chair be, how can we use, for example, the wool that's been used for the seat on that chair, how can that be reused for new product cycles? So it has to be designed for disassembly, and it has to be designed so that it's without toxicants, for example. So the material is easy to reuse. But on the right-hand side here, you can see a kind of like focus of what actually matters to them. So from an environmental perspective, the thing that has the highest value is actually producing products of high quality because it lasts longer. And then product responsibility is there because you can, they're responsible in the kind of materials they use, and they're transparent on how they source the material and the footprint of the material. And that's something you oftentimes have to do through something called an environmental product declaration, an EPD. And that goes into the carbon budget that you have to use in your business, especially if you're a business of a certain scale. And so, as you can see here, you also see that they have committed employees as a goal. So safe work environment, diversity and equality is a focus for them, and getting the local community engaged. So, so as you can see, there's they have a lot of different focus areas when it comes to sustainability, both the social sustainability and also the environmental aspect. So, and that goes everything from the materials they use and also the suppliers that they're using for producing their products. One thing is that they actually want to also reduce the amount of traffic that they spend going from, for example, the factories they have in Asia, because they have 3 factories in Asia, one in Lithuania and one in the US and 5 in Norway. So they see that they have a lot of improvements to be made on transport. This is another example. This is not a business, but it's something called the Sustainable Brand Index. This is actually a survey that is done not only in Norway, but in many countries. I think they have, they do this in close to 35 countries or something like that. And they highlight around 255 companies each year, and they ask consumers how they perceive their sustainability. And so actually these are the brands who are winning when it comes to from the consumer point of view, when it comes to sustainability. And as you can see here, Finn.no is one of the sites that actually won last year. And they are kind of Norway's version of Craigslist. There's like Norwegian versions of Craigslist. I don't know, do you have something similar to this in Ukraine?
Maybe OLX. OLX, I think that's the platform where you can buy stuff, find contact jobs. I'm not sure if you can find jobs on OLX, but you have all sort of announcements there as well. Very similar.
That's good. Okay, OLX. It's called OLX. Yeah.
OLX, so 3 letters.
All right. Okay. Thanks. So yeah, as you can see, these I think Norway is one of the countries in the world that uses. We have, although we are quite a small population, like 5.6 million, I think, we have a really high material footprint in Norway. So I think if Norway were to I think we spend around close to, I had it written down here somewhere, close to 3 Earths per year, like the kind of like resources on a planet. We in Norway spend alone, like we have a massive footprint. So, and actually in Norway, the amount of knowledge on circularity is there's not a lot of people in Norway that knows what circularity entails, and the knowledge on environmental, how how your footprint and your consumption, the effect that has on the environment, that knowledge needs to be improved, because a lot of people, they have a high consumption because we have a high standard of living, but they don't know how that affects the environment and the footprint that results in. So one of the reasons why Finn won this competition is that this is a second-hand market where you can trade in things, and you can essentially sell things or give away things. So for example, if you have a sofa at home that you don't like anymore, you can post it there, and then someone might come and pick it up. Or so you can either give it away or sell it. And it has more than 300,000 ads going on at all times, and more like close to 2.3 million active users. So these numbers were gathered a few years ago. So I actually would think that close to half of Norway's population are using Finn.no. So they have a huge brand awareness in the market, and people know that by taking more care of their things and actually fixing it and ensuring that it can be reused, they feel like they are more environmental friendly. And so this actually incentivizes people to take better care of their products and their things. And so this has resulted in as much CO2 reduction as that equates to 15 months free of traffic in Oslo, which says a lot, right? So they've actually been able to reduce their people's CO2 emissions by enabling sharing platform. And this is something that's happening a lot in Norway. You have other sharing platforms like Tice and others, where you can actually go in and you can share and resell your things. And the main reason why I'm mentioning this is that because I know that a lot of you are focusing on selling clothes or selling furniture. And so in order to get to a more sustainable pattern, we need to move from this use cycle where we produce things, where we extract resources, we extract minerals and fossil fuels and so forth to produce and manufacture things, and then we use transport to sell it, and then that's sold through all sorts of channels. But after it's sold and being used once, it loses its value. So what we need to do is that we need to move to this, a place where we continue to produce things, but we can produce less because we're able to actually reuse parts of what we already have. And the way of doing that is through repair and maintenance mechanisms, and to ensure that there are reuse and redistribution mechanisms, or just refurbishing things. I saw an interesting company, it's this German flight company. What they did in Germany, they sold parts of the chairs that they had on a flight to a cinema, and then the cinema refurbished those chairs and made it actually comfortable for the cinema goers. And that's one way of like using something that's used for one thing and you're refurbishing it to be used for something else. And that's better than actually producing something that's new. So that's a lot of great opportunities in doing that, and a great way of thinking creatively and thinking differently. And then, as you can see, the recycle aspect comes at the lower end of the spectrum. The highest one is actually repairing and maintaining things. So, but actually, there's something in circularity called the 10R principle, and the biggest thing you can do that has the most impact is to refuse to use a certain type of material, or just refuse to buy that thing altogether. And so I think this example from Patagonia is like the best example of that, right? They made this marketing campaign a few years ago where they said, don't buy this jacket. And then on the right-hand side, you can see like you have all these aspects that you should only buy the jacket if you really need it, right? So, but they have an opportunity. They have enough loyal customers, and they have enough vendors that sells their product to be able to market themselves this way. Most startups are not able to do that. And so I wanted to show another Norwegian startup that does something similar, but they actually create a service around the product. And that's Parkdressen. And what they do is that they offer these kind of, I don't know what you would call it in English, but it's like, it's something like overall kind of, you give to children at the age from 2 until 8 or 7, that they have like, it's an overall kind of suit that they can go out in the kindergarten and they can play with it. When you buy this from a traditional retailer, it's not durable. So oftentimes it's broken after less than a year. So I think the average parents, they have to buy 2 parkas dresses, like 2 a year, up to 2.5, because they're not durable enough. So what Parkdressen have done is that they have actually decided to make this durable and make a durable product out of it. And so it's actually designed to last. Like children can go and use it, and they can play with it, and then it doesn't necessarily get torn. But if it does, they have actually they're making a service around this product. So if it's torn, it gets repaired, and if it's dirty, it gets washed. So they're actually leasing these Parkdresser to municipalities, local banks, and kindergartens. And this is actually a great way to deliver value to parents who, at least nowadays, many are struggling financially because of higher prices on pretty much everything. Ranging from food, electricity prices have gone up. And so with this product, you can pay less, but more often through a subscription and get better quality. So, but what they are doing is essentially they're selling this to municipalities and to kindergartens who are paying for it, which means the parents don't have to pay for it themselves. And so once your kid has grown out of this kind of Parkdresser, then you can return it, and then they will repair and wash it and fix it, and then they'll give it to someone else that has the need. So essentially, you're also alleviated from the burden of having to recycle it yourself. So this is a completely new way of thinking around products and around services. You integrate products with a service, where in which you have a way of leasing something, and you repair it, and you provide a service around it. So it's no longer just a product. And that means that you have more control of the materials, and you can essentially have a lower footprint, and you allow people to become more environmental friendly as well. So this is you can do this around many things. I think the Dutch economy is probably the best example, because in the Netherlands, 24.5% of the whole economy is circular. And there's a company there that offers washing machines as a service. So that's everything from installment to picking the machine up when it's damaged and repairing it. And essentially, they offer the soap you need for the machine and so forth. And you pay for, the value with these kind of business models is that you pay for the result. You don't pay for the thing itself, but you pay for that the product actually works, and it works better than it would if you just bought the machine. So yeah, these are some examples of circular business models. I don't have time to go into depth with them. I'd be happy to send you more content and reports and so forth if you're interested in wanting to know more about circular economy and sustainability. But to close things off, I wanted to recommend you to look into what sustainable development goal that motivates you. So find one, preferably the more specific you are, the better. So find one or maximum 3 or 4. So if you go up to 5, and I see you have 5 development goals in the webpage, I would think personally that you're not specific enough. So, but I understand that a lot of people, they have various focus areas, but I would recommend you to choose 1 or maximum 3, and then say which indicators you're focusing on. And then I would recommend you to go into your value chain to see what's your carbon footprint based on the material you use and how much carbon footprint is emission to your transport and also to production. So when it comes to production, a lot of people, they don't think that the electricity you use in your production site, that actually has an emission that results in carbon emissions. So think about that as well. It's a lot of aspects that goes into this. Try to figure out where your carbon footprint is the biggest, and then try to think which kind of circular principles can you use to reduce it, and can you make some changes in your business model, in the way you produce things, and the way you sell things, or the way you market it. And that goes into communicating sustainability, showing how you essentially is an advocate for sustainability, not only talking about it, but actually doing it. So you're saying why, you're saying why you're doing what you do, and what you're doing, and how you're doing it. So what are you doing to reduce your carbon footprint, and how? And why does it matter, right? Those things are really important to convince a consumer like me. So yeah, if you want to use some tools on how to track and figure out your CO2 emission levels, I can recommend this Norwegian startup called Celsia, or you can use another Norwegian startup called Ducky. Or I can recommend actually using the SDG Action Manager by UN Global Compact, and that's free to use, and it's a really good tool. Just Google SDG Action Manager, and then you can make your own goals and figure out like what to improve upon. But there you have to do things manually. But there are softwares out there that helps you to track your carbon footprint. So recommend you to do that research, and also get in touch with, for example, UN Global Compact to see how you can join into networks on how to share knowledge and how to communicate things. And I think I will end there. Here are some environmental certifications to look into. The B Corp one is a good place to start. But yeah. You can email me at rune@gründerforum.no. And one new thing that I'm beginning to, in addition to holding workshops like this, I'm working on helping businesses to integrate sustainability more. So if you want to get some feedback, please get in touch. But we got 2 minutes for questions, I think, but you probably need a break. But yeah. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Rune. It was very interesting. And I would just like to mention from my side that maybe before 2022, when we were in dialogues and negotiations between Norwegian and Ukrainian companies, I think they, some of these elements that you talked about, like the sustainable development goals, they would at some point come in anyways. So it looks really well if you are prepared to these questions. If you don't have answers, it doesn't mean that you have everything in place, or you already have a plan with your sustainable development goals. But I think that knowing that they exist, and knowing that your counterparty might ask about this, and like ask you what you do about that, where you take your supply chain, where you take your resources from, materials, and so on. I think but being open and saying that you're working on that is always a plus. Thank you, Rune, again for giving this overview and then the practical steps in the way. I think there is one hand. Kata, you have a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, understanding that we're short on time, but I have been curious throughout the presentation. Thank you so much, Rune, for very interesting presentation, great examples that are really, really excellent. But I wanted to ask, because we work in Ukraine, we work mostly with micro and small businesses. So just again, drawing, and you mentioned, I think, sometime during your presentation that, of course, the cost of introducing sustainability and the standards for the small business sometimes can be unaffordable. I wanted to ask if there are any incentives in Norway for small businesses to be sustainable, to strive for implementation of SDGs, or it's more purely, not humanity, purely motivation that comes from your beliefs and aspirations.
Yeah, thank you. So I think there's a lot of funding that can be applied for. In Norway, there's a lot of funding from Innovation Norway. And I know also on EU level, they're really fronting this. And so there's Horizon 2020. And there's a lot of other initiatives that or foundations that you can probably apply for as well. I agree. It's a challenge. For example, this business model that I mentioned, with leasing Parkdresser, it's a challenge to convince investors to join on board with this. But it's trying to figure out how you can, in the long run, maybe it will cost a transition cost to become sustainable to begin with. But then 5 years or longer down the line, it will be more profitable, hopefully. So if you can convince your consumers and your investors about that, then I think that's the right way to go, to try do some calculations on, yes, how much extra will it cost us in the short run, but how much can we save in the long run? And yes, I agree. It's difficult for small business owners to make a transition, which is also why it's good to start off thinking about sustainability and sustainable sourcing from the get-go. So one way could also be to look into different vendors and see who has the best footprints, actually. If you're like sourcing from two different, sourcing materials from two different vendors, look into who has the best footprints.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I don't see any other questions, but we will share this presentation, and feel free to get in touch with Rune if you have any questions. How are we? Do we need a break, 3 minutes, or can we continue? We have another speaker. I can see, Anna, you already joined us from the beginning. I'm very happy to see you. Do we need a break, Kata? What do you say? We can just jump in and continue.
I think it depends mostly on Hannah. I think we can continue listening. So if Hannah doesn't need a break before she starts talking, we are all right to go.
Hannah, how are you?
No, I
Need a
don't.
break? No. Okay. I suggest
you.
we just continue and then rather finish up a little bit earlier if we need, and then have break then after the meeting.
It would
All
be
right.
nice if we can finish 5 minutes before.
Yes. All right. Great. But Hannah, thank you very much for joining. Yeah, Rune, you can disconnect if you need. You can welcome to stay if you are interested. But Hannah, back to you. Thank you very much for joining. We're very lucky to have you today. I met Hannah in some years ago. We traveled together to Ukraine. Hannah works for a company called Proneo. They've been working mostly with Norwegian businesses. Now they are becoming more international, I think. You can tell more about your background and what you worked with, but I think that after visiting your company, I was very impressed how how many companies you work with. It's everything from small startups, just ideas, to big already established companies, and you help them to improve their business strategies, to also maybe incorporate the sustainability elements and the innovations. But you personally have experience working with Ukrainians and teaching them how to do business in Norway. Maybe they have some ideas to start a company here. And I think that you very well understand both Ukrainian mentality, us Ukrainians, as well as been living in Norway for a very long time. So it's you understand how Norway functions. So I think your competence and your knowledge is very valuable here. So the floor is yours. If you have any slide to share, you can do it now. I think we'll collect all these slides and presentations and share with our participants. So that if they have any questions afterward, they can come back to us. I think that you have a permit to share presentations, so you don't need to click on anything. So feel free to do that. Hanna, the digital floor is yours.
Yes, thank you for the invitation and for this wonderful introduction. So I'm trying to share my screen right now. Please try later again. What does it mean? I don't understand. 1 second. I'm not so familiar with this Zoom ecosystem because we use Microsoft Teams.
But if you click on share screen, the green button.
Yes, I did it. So I click and I choose the right desktop and click to share. Yes, now
we can see it.
You can see it. Can you see it in the PDF view or in full screen?
Maybe in PDF view. I think it's PDF view.
In PDF.
Or works for me. Okay. As long as we see the slide, I think.
No, it's now full screen.
Yes, I changed to full screen. So thank you. Thank you for the invitation again. So I hope I can share my knowledge and can be useful. So where to start? Yes, my name is Hanna Maros, and I represent a Norwegian company which is called Proneo, and I would say not Norwegian, but Trøndelag company. So we present this region called Trøndelag, which is in the middle of Norway. I'm not sure it's Trøndelag, it's Norway. It's a very traditional region, and I guess more not so international as metropolitan area in Oslo. And yes. So I will tell more about our region. And
so it's a good region. It's a good region to get acquainted with the Norwegian culture, because it's not that international, very traditional. So if you want to conquer the heart of Norway, you conquer Trøndelag.
Absolutely, more conservative and traditional. If we compare different regions of Norway. So how can I, the next one, navigate my,
I think it's
here. So it will be this scroll function, I guess. So Proneo, it's a Norwegian innovation consulting company. So we deliver different services and innovation support services. So I would start with this one so we use this slide in the end as usual. I would like to share my contact information in the very beginning of my presentation, that now you have a connection and a friend in the middle of Norway, in Trøndelag County. So here's my email address and LinkedIn profile. So you'll find more information and activities in on LinkedIn and our corporate webpage. So we have English language on the webpage also. So if you have any questions or need more information or need, I don't know, advice, recommendations, just drop me a line and we will, yes, find out the solution and you will receive more information. So I'm a project manager in Proneo by title, but I work as a, how to say, business consultant or business analyst, management consultant. So I consult and assist SMEs and yes, actually different sizes. And if we talk about sizes and industries, so businesses and companies on strategies, business models, overall strategy, digital strategy, market expanding growth strategy, marketing strategy, and so on. Supply chains, So the spectrum of our services are huge and differ from case to case. So here's the map of Norway. As I told you, in the middle of Norway, our region called geographically Mid-Norway, together with Møre og Romsdal County, but we situated in the Trøndelag County. So we operate from 4 locations. Our headquarters is in this Vardal municipality, Vardal Industrial Park, which is the 3rd large industrial park in Norway. And we closely connected to such industries as manufacturing, forestry, waste management, agriculture, mainly manufacturing and production of all types of goods and services. So in our park, you can find a huge Norwegian company producing oil jackets for this huge underwater part for oil and gas industry. So I'm today here in our Stjørdal Business Park, which is 5 minutes by car from the international airport, Trondheim International Airport. And Anastasia, you visited our office here for a couple of months. I don't remember, it was November or October last year.
October.
Yeah, so then we have 2 offices in our coastal line in Flatanger municipality, Flatanger Aquaculture Park, and Rørvik Aquaculture Cluster. So we're close to both aquaculture, maritime, and wind energy. So we connected and have different projects with green energy and wind cluster. So yes, as a little bit more about our region, as we told, culturally, it's more traditional and conservative. By the way, Trøndelag was the European region of gastronomy 2022. So we have many local food manufacturers, producers. So we work a lot with food and hospitality industry, as many other industries. So we have the entire spectrum of industries in our region. More about our services. So I need to, yes. So here's about our mission. It's a couple of words. So we want to contribute to value creation and sustainable business growth. So sustainable, we use a lot internally and in Norway. So it's a huge trend today. We can describe it as a market trend and market driver, which will influence all the activities in all markets and business activities. So we do it through our extensive expertise in different fields, networks, and our own model for innovation management, which was designed in-house. Yes, because we want to increase innovation capacity and competitiveness of Norwegian businesses. So we work both with incubation, acceleration, and spin-offs. So we bring together experts from different fields and cooperate with our international innovation agency, which is called Innovation Norway. I guess you've heard about this agency. Governmental enterprises, industrial networks, clusters, leading research and development institutions as SINTEF and other innovation stakeholders. So we cooperate and have different networks among all innovation stakeholders in our innovation ecosystem. Yes, we work both with the private sector and public sector. We provide different services for businesses and industries, as I mentioned, and public service innovation services. We work a lot with health and municipalities, and here we cover with our services the entire country. So we provide not only municipalities in our region, but from Finnmark to Stavanger area and Oslo. So for example, last year it was a project with Gardermoen municipality restructuring processes there. A couple of words about our services. Program management as a charge incubator. We also program manager for incubation, for business incubation, and we deliver business development consultancy. For private businesses, restructuring processes, as I mentioned, for municipalities in Norway, business cluster development and cluster management. As I mentioned, forestry cluster woodworks, as well as Wind Cluster Norway. Onshore, we cooperate and collaborate with onshore wind parks, wind energy, what to call them in English. So such clusters and smart water cluster, circular CVAC, which is circular innovation cluster, and many more. We facilitate access to R&D projects and financial instruments, as well as we provide services, educational services, let's call it, entrepreneurial courses and seminars, workshops for startups and individuals with brilliant business ideas. So we launched this kind of courses for Ukrainians here. So on behalf of 3 municipalities in the region, so we conduct this kind of courses now. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat field or just unmute and ask. And here is the topic which we will cover today. So before you expand your business into Norway, or any other international market. So we work a lot with this topic with our companies here. So today and yesterday we had a tough session on this topic with businesses and with similar profiles. I've got this list of participants and industries. So we have similar profiles and companies who think to expand abroad and to different international markets. So, but here the main or key thing, it's a cultural differences, a cultural difference and culture. So the main advice here to understand culture and markets. So we are going to plan to establish some activities. So what I want to, maybe it will be kind of, so I want to talk about Norwegian culture, business culture. Maybe it will be, how to say, you covered this topic in previous session, but this repetition, so we can repeat this information. And I would like to give you a roadmap to how to expand, how to think new markets and some cases. So maybe we can take this very case-based discussion. So I can open or tell you something about markets and different maybe chains or retail chains, and how to say, open some market insights for your business models or for your opportunities. So so here we have how to say, a list of common and very important things to understand Norwegian business corporate culture, which is maybe it's not only for business but for private life also, because it's based on the Scandinavian or Norwegian values, core values. So the first thing here, it's everyone is equal and have the same yes, and diverse, the same rights and opportunities. Yep. So here we talk about gender equality and diversity. So every voice is important here. So that's why we have direct connections and contact. We don't have many gatekeepers. For example, if I want to take or establish contact with different companies, so I just write an email, I Google and find contact information, or ask, for example, someone in my network. So I don't hesitate. I take contact when I need it. So it will be maybe the first thing I would recommend. Use actively LinkedIn and Google search, so you can find all the information you need and contacts. So people are open here, and they respond. So strong job protection laws and extensive social welfare system. So I think you've heard about this. Decision making, we all organizations and SMEs here, we have flat organizational structures, which makes decision making and all these processes very short. So, but if we talk about this response, it can take, for example, weeks to get a response. That it's a normal situation. Just yes, be aware of it. So we, as I can say that every employee in an organization is a decision maker within responsibilities and functions. So we don't need to ask our manager or top manager, they don't micromanage. So we take responsibility and make decisions as employees. So another common thing here, it's oral agreement and short email. So, for example, you can get offer by email, and your response can be okay. So we don't need this kind of huge papers and agreements in written and signed. So we can just for phone talk and short email agree on different and collaboration and cooperation. Yes. Yeah, and every aspects of our lives, not only business. So, for example, if I order some services from anyone here, so it can be offer one sentence. So here's the offer and price will be so okay. Agreed. Meetings are typically conducted informally and often without any note taken and meeting keeping. So it can be a plus or minus thing, but we can say that we have this kind of informal corporate or business culture in general. A couple of words about management style. Again, informal leadership style. And it's a fun fact, actually, that leader and English word leader from Norwegian leder, because leder was, if we think of Vikings and their ships, so leder was the first ship in the group, and all other ships were followed. So this ship were followed by others. So it's from a Norwegian culture and Viking values, so we can get back in time and consider it. So informal leadership. So leader for inspiration, not for directing and setting rules. So as I mentioned, leaders do not micromanage here. So because employees, they have their responsibilities. So based on trust and good relations. Employee freedom with responsibility, yes. High trust among people. So it's not only when it comes to businesses, but in general, we trust each other. So the entire culture is based on this principle and value, and focus on cooperation. If we talk about school system and how we teach our children, and we work a lot in teams, and all about cooperation and teamwork here. Yes, the main huge thing here, it's a work-life balance. So we work from Monday to Friday, and generally from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Maybe this can cause long response time or many other things as different celebrations and during the year and vacations and so on. But we can, work in work hours, and our private life, it's good for health and for mental health and for entire society. Greeting, I would like to mention, I didn't mention that we worked a lot internationally, especially it was a long project in Moldova and in the Baltics. So I remember this thing about handshaking. So, for example, in Moldovan culture, men handshake, but not women. And I remember my colleagues from women from Norway. They was, how to say, slightly shocked. In Norway, men and women shake hands as equals. But here's the thing about the pandemic. So we have changes about this rule. Yes, Anastasia?
I just want to add that the handshaking always happens when you meet person for the first time. And we have a funny story in this IT company when Ukrainian IT guys came to Norway to work in the office, and they started their morning with the round of handshakes, because in Ukraine we kind of handshake every time guys see each other, they say hello. And then Norwegians were like, why did we met yesterday? Why do we have to do this every morning? So handshakes happen between everyone, and only one time when you meet the person, and then after that you just say hello, so you don't need to handshake.
It can be hugs after that, if based on the relationship. But handshake, yes, absolutely. And for the first time when we meet and get acquainted with this person, but equals back to this the first rule or the first value, all gender equality, and So, and here's another thing, use first names in the business setting after the first introduction. So when we meet, when we know the person or met this before, so we use first name as usual. We don't use like we joke a lot about this doctor professor in Germany, for example, and different titles. So we don't use it. Lars, Svein, so only the first name. I don't know what can you add something, Anastasia, on this thing?
Well, I think that in Ukraine it's of course Svetlana Ivanovna would be Svetlana Petrivna. Also, like when you talk to older people, so maybe you want to use first name and the father's name. But I think that it's also changing. For example, in IT community and more progressive communities in Ukraine, it's also changing. We use the first name. Katja?
Thanks, Hannah. Other than absolutely loving the business hours, which is, I think, it's actually very healthy, and not in the case, of course, here. But I wanted to ask about high trust among people, because I think that trust is of paramount importance. We cannot argue about that. But when you say that there is high trust among people, do you mean within the society? And then how do foreigners enter the trust circle? What foreigners need to know to build trust effectively?
It's about thank you for the question. Yes, it's a normal thing here to trust people, because we all the systems, because of the density and the population, we are all only 5 millions, about 5 millions, and all the system are is transparent. So you can check, you can find all the information you need about everyone. So that's why people don't hide things, and we can find quickly all we need if it's a problem or something. For foreigners, it's about networking and how to start this trustworthy relation and build these relationships. So it's a process. It takes time, but as I say, we are open. We just expect the same, like vice versa. As I said, I'm open, so you can just write me an email, and I will try my best to help you. And I consider that I will get back this form of attitude. So, be open and use your network. For example, if someone in your network can introduce you to someone in your network, so it's based on this principle. Anastasia?
Yeah, I would add, of course, that in business, trust can be built through actions, like when you deliver 3 orders in time and everything, no problem. I think that that's the base of your trust. But then when foreigners come to Norway, I think that if you show, even though if you don't speak Norwegian, but if you show that you know your phrases and you kind of get acquainted with the Norwegian culture, you bought, I don't know, this Marius Genser, like a typical Norwegian sweater. So you kind of show that you're interested in the culture, and that automatically will add some also trust to you. But it is hard to get trust. It takes time. As Anna mentioned, and we talked last time, everything takes time. The same with trust. If you're a foreigner and you have friends, Norwegian friends, maybe sometime, or business partners in the beginning, they will not invite you for dinners. It will be some distance. You will feel like, oh, maybe they're keeping distance. But with time, if you get in the circle, you will be in the circle. That's why it takes time to build partnership, find buyers, for example, in Norway. But if you manage to do that and you convince them to take 1, 2, 3 orders, you are already in the system. That will last forever, as long as you are able to produce. And if nothing changes in your relationship, I think that will be a very good cooperation. And that works for business, and it works for private people-to-people interaction.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for this. Yeah, absolutely true. So, and you mentioned Marius Genser or sweater and this kind of stuff. I haven't included this in the presentation, but we do have this kind of very informal dress code here. So, for example, people can appear in different how to say important meetings for example, in wearing hiking pants and boots. So pets are welcome in these meetings, babies and so on. So absolutely all acceptable, because it's our lives. And we start back to meetings and meeting culture. It's a must thing in each meeting to start with so-called small talk, and talk about relatives and people we know, for example, together, or our common friends. And so last updates from news and the weather topic, it's the common one. So it's must thing. So yes, it was a short, how to say, outlook on this key core values and principles. So we build our culture on this to understand and I would say accept these, how to say, rules to build good relationships. So if we go to the next one, so here's a type of Norwegian companies. This is 3 most common business forms in Norway. I guess in Ukraine the same, absolutely the same. So we have limited liability company, which is aksjeselskap in the region. So we have partnership and joint venture, and so I need to write enkeltpersonforetak. So proprietorship, it will be in English. It's a common thing, one person business in a way. So if someone interested on this topic, where to start, if we talk about established business in Norway, just take contact. So I have so many things to tell about what do's and don'ts in this situation. Requirements to start these forms and compare, business sizes, it's common. It's a huge concentration in our region of small, medium-sized enterprises, both in form of number of employees and turnover, and micro businesses. So micro businesses, it's the same thing as this sole one-person business when they have only 1-2 employees, but they register it as a liability limited company because of this different legal aspects. So foreign companies can set up business operations in Norway under these two forms: legal form, subsidiary company, and branch office. So I don't think that we need to dive in this information. So it's for your information. And so here's the roadmap I mentioned. Where to start when we think of business growth and business expansion. So here's the roadmap. So usually we use these four phases. First, we start with this huge question, where to play. So we're not thinking about the geography. We think the segment, market, and this kind of specific thing. So for example, Norway, it's not the answer here. So it could be Trøndelag, it could be Møre og Romsdal, but we need to choose specific industry and segment market. So I will tell a little bit more about this. So the next thing will be when we define where to play, we need to define and design the right strategy, how to win the competition. And next will be how we're going to play with. We need to identify these cooperation models, partners, how to, what kind of models we need to establish to win the game. And then we need to design to form our market expansion plan. So here's 4 main phases when we think about these activities and business expansion. So if we go and dive into this, the first one, where to play. So here we have 3 main things. We start with market research, market segmentation. So the common thing and modern thing today to segment markets based on persona market. So we need to understand our consumer or our potential partner, how they make their decisions. So as we say internally here, we need to know what our customer eats for breakfast. It's absolutely necessary. How they behave, what kind of values they have, and how they make their decisions. So there are many different things available and open today. Different data sources, databases, big data. We're talking about this also. So the world connected to the internet, so we can gain many of things and understand much. Find many things we need to our research. So it can be also interviews, surveys, and your door openers, like your network, and ask people you know in, for example, that specific area or in that industry, what they think, what they can tell you about all intermediaries in the supply chain, how they buy, how they order, and these kind of things. Market trends and market drivers. It's absolutely necessary and important thing to understand because markets, it's dynamics, market dynamics. It's not this kind of static things. They change a lot new technology can enable new behavioral patterns and decision making patterns. So that's why it's so important to observe market trends. So, for example, today this green shift happens. We're not talking about only digital shift, but green shift, and what kind of to identify, for example, sustainability and these global sustainable goals. It's a main driver. So they influence all markets, all firms and transitions and different processes. So to understand this kind of things. Competition and competitive analysis. Cooperate, because markets, it's not only consumers, customers, there are many competitive initiatives, and we need to understand who are them and what product services they deliver, and cover how they cover their demand on the market. The next thing will be do the math, measure the opportunity. So here's the very simple formula: estimated market size. Just take the number of your potential customers, average price, and purchase frequency. So it's important to understand how much of your specific product or service each customer will buy during the lifetime of the customer or of this product. What will be the frequency? Is the weekly purchase once upon a time, or yes, you need to define this parameter also. And the next step here, assess the difficulty. So here we talk about ease of doing business, starting business, currency, payments. Do we need to adjust our products? We need to think of language, different restrictions, colors, design. I have many cases in my experience how we can, for example, for Norway, this kind of color palette or colors will be the perfect choice, and we need to move abroad to our neighbor country and neighbor municipality in Sweden, and it will be totally crushed with these colors, for example, because they have different values and perception, and they choose for their babies, for example, and in that segment, different colors, and they differ a lot. But we're talking about 100 kilometers market between markets, but different choices and different decision patterns. So then we need to take this risk assessment also, transport partners, partnership models, and so on. So here will be the main activities if we talk about this first phase, crucial phase in the entire process, where to play when we choose our market or playground where we want to play. Do you have any questions about this part? The next will be then how to win. So back to this input we produce in the first phase, we need to define our goals, financial goals, or what does success look like? Why we need to set goals to develop the right strategy. So competition and substitutes. How, for example, what the competition looks like. in that particular market, and what kind of substitutes exist in this market, how we will win. So we can, when we will design our win strategy, so we can use SWOT analysis, for example, to assess our forces, internal forces and external market forces. So we need to identify key capabilities for our business, for our company, that we can compete and win the market share. Yeah. And the next thing will be who to play with. So selecting a partner here will be the main activity. We understand the model for cooperation with this potential partner. So here's the many different things we need to do this assessment to understand what kind of partner profile we need to establish, or we need for our business or our business expansion. And then we need to understand the profile, pros and cons of if we need to have an agent or distributor, or we need to employ our own salesperson in that market, or we need to consider joint venture. I'm not going to go deeper in this topic. It's how to say this kind of framework, main things to consider, and think when we are going to approach different markets. And then we need to build our plan. We need to understand what we need to change in our current business model, for example, or organizational structure. Maybe we need to change corporate culture to establish activities in that particular market, as well as operational models. We need to assess and analyze our processes and different functions in the organization, and understand what can we, for example, keep in-house, and what kind of activities we can set up in different partnerships, for example. And of course, we need to think of capital strategy, because these kind of activities are very demanding and needs lots of financial instruments. So we need to understand and analyze how we can cover our costs to succeed in this particular market. So here's the list of different opportunities. For example, we consider when we work on these activities or strategies, how we will finance our activities. Whether it will be a soft funding, investment funds, business angels, family and friends, cash, or we will use our credit cards, or maybe we can go for crowdfunding. So there are many choices here. Yes, it was this part of about the roadmap, where to start and how to approach this process. And we have just 8 minutes left. So here's some examples from both our region and our business incubators, startup companies and established businesses. As I saw in this participant list, we have representatives from this textile, furniture, food industry, chocolate, coffee brewery. So we have these cases in-house So if you need more information, but I can say that the main focus here, as we got information about sustainability on the source of and origin of all input we need to produce and manufacture our goods and services, the entire supply chain, the social responsibility of our partners. And I can say that all Norwegian, for example, designers and furniture manufacturers, they have production points abroad. So they are highly interested, as well as textile industry, they're highly interested in production points and partners on this side. So demand is here on our side, but you can consider to be a production partner here. So I don't know if you have any questions, or I don't know, comments, or
Is there, I have one, because I know what you work with, but is there any example of the product that you were trying to build, for example, strategy for the Norwegian market, and you found out that this doesn't work, or the other, or if you change this product that works a little bit better, and why it works a little bit better, why this doesn't work? Do you have like a concrete example that you could share with us?
like, for example, Surf Kombucha, they started kombucha here in our region, and we worked a lot on different tastes. Like here we have mango and raspberry and ginger taste. So we worked a lot with marketing, research, and understand consumption patterns and consumers. And then they moved abroad, and they established their own production in Portugal. So it was a huge process to understand whether we need to establish a business there and a production site, or we can just have this kind of export situation. So they totally changed the design of the product, the bottle size, and and of course tastes of the product, adapted to the market conditions there.
Interesting. All right, any other questions?
But here it will be the main requirement to the input or raw materials, or the source or the origin of them, of these materials. And so, for example, this textile or brand, menswear brand, they chose to go to Portugal again as a capital, European capital of sustainable fashion or production. So they have many different both textile and shoes clusters. I think Ukraine will take this position, or have businesses have all kind of opportunities to take this position also.
Yeah, and I also believe that, working with Ukrainian businesses since 2018, I see that Norwegians were very surprised how fast, as what we talked right in the beginning of this meeting, how fast Ukrainian companies can adapt to the changes. In the beginning of the autumn, Ukraine was exporting energy. In October, suddenly we don't have enough energy in our country, but then working shifts, buying these generators, working like day and nights, and like changing the strategies, actually something that impresses Norway. Norway, everything takes time. In Ukraine, everything happens fast, and I think that these two sides can can have a really good cooperation between them. Yeah, I think that they're just only equipping the companies with right knowledge. And thank you, Hanna, together with Rune, that these two presentations are a very good also starting point. And you mentioned a lot of things that companies should think about before they start taking contacts with Norwegians. And as you mentioned, that just calling and asking and presenting yourself, this is, even though a lot of a lot of Norwegians would be very critical to this approach and saying that cold calls and emails don't work, but I would say they do, because they are not that typical here, and they don't expect your call. And when you call, they will definitely remember you. But I think before you take that call, before you take that meeting, you should really do the homework and then get prepared, be ready for these questions, look through these elements. And I think that the more confident and prepared you are at that first meeting, the better impression is, the better is the chance to get trust. And then of course, the better is the chance to build up this cooperation and stay on the Norwegian market. So all in all, this is all the kind of different sides of the same question. And I hope that you got some ideas and starting points for how to move on and where to start. And we in our chamber have some current direct requests from our international partners, also from the Norwegian companies. For example, it's a t-shirt production. So if you're making t-shirts and you are willing to, for example, cooperate on some private label production, so let me know. Also, we have a request on metal constructions and some furniture as well. So please take contact with us if you think that this is something for you to start with. We also mentioned before that probably one of the easiest way to start is label production and the private label production. And when you do produce something for the Norwegian brand in their design, but we in the chamber also believe that bringing the established Ukrainian product where it says made in Ukraine and with the Ukrainian brand and name would be, of course, most beneficial for Ukraine. And this is a good time to do it now, because there is this will among the Norwegian companies to help Ukraine, and they understand that the economic front line is also a front line that you need to support to bring the victory closer. So this process requires a kind of contribution from all the sides. Ukrainian companies should do their homework, get prepared. We on our side mobilize the interest of the Norwegian companies, and then companies like Proneo and Charge and all the Innovation Norway, they provide tools and knowledge and kind of help you to shape up your strategy and move on to the Norwegian market. So I hope everything was interesting. I hope that you got some ideas and maybe some inspiration. Of course, businesses are different and your products are different. So please, if you have a concrete case and you started working towards Norway, remember everything takes time. So you need to be very patient and be consistent in your work, and then just move slowly with small steps, but towards your goal. And of course, have everything in place before you take this first call and first meeting. If any last chance to have a question or comment in the end. How can I contact you? If you are talking about my email address, I will leave it in the comment. Anna, maybe you could also do it. We will share some presentation, but we will share the presentation, but it might take some time, as we talked about that Norway everything takes time. So I left my email address in the comment section. It's very easy. You just a few letters. Yes, so please send me your presentation and a few words about you. Also, when you take contact with companies in Norway or like Chamber of Commerce, for example, it's very important that you have a person who speaks English, who can continue having this dialogue if you put you in contact with someone else, so you can continue the dialogue yourself. You don't involve any this middleman. As Hanna told today, that the Norwegians like the direct communication, so no middlemen and no middleman. So yeah, so you have a person who can take over the dialogue. You have a clear presentation when you mention everything you can mention that is like important. I mean, short but important. So like sustainability, source of your materials, and all of that. So what you produce, design, make sure you look at the Norwegian design, what works on the Norwegian market. Maybe like a very colorful. You might have a niche product that probably you don't think it would work in Norway, but then remember that the market share would be probably very small. Norway is a small market, and then if you have a very niche product, it might be even smaller. Are you ready to go into that niche? So think about that, and when you take contact with us, you should also have this information in place. Everything else that I also mentioned last time, for example, you can do your homework when you also contact us, meaning that you look already, you find stores or brands that you think would be interesting for you. You find someone already who is in Norway, and you think that, okay, this Norwegian company is someone I believe would be interested in my product. You have reasons why, and if you have 2, 3, 4 companies like that, it would be easier for us also. First of all, we can take contact with them on your behalf, but we can also find companies with similar profile, and then suggest some other options for you. That also speeds up the process a little bit and makes it easier for us to kind of represent you and your product. Exhibitions, please check out the exhibitions in Norway. Tenders, but tenders also keep in mind that when there is a tender, they usually require volumes. So if it's all this public state tenders, for example, furniture for schools, hospitals, and so on, they might require some volume. So are you ready to produce that? Well, can you deliver that volume? But I think that you can also sort it by volumes and types of products and countries and counties in Norway. So there might be some big school that requires volume, but might be a smaller school that requires smaller volume, to put it like that. Yes, I think we will stop it here. Thank you, Hanna, again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, for your time. We will make these videos available online. So if you are watching this recording, so please check out the Norwegian Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce website, and then you'll find my contact there as well. If you have any questions, please come back to us. And I wish everyone a nice continuation of this week. Thank you, Hanna, again for joining. It was very nice seeing you, and let's keep in touch. First chamber I met who can help someone. We try to be, and we try to be as practical as possible. If you go to our website, you'll see that we work with different projects, and every project has its own project manager. So we're trying to be practical. Of course, sometimes you have to start with theory before you go to practice, but at the same time, we think that it goes hand in hand. You can just hold speeches and like high talks and organize conferences without actually following up with some concrete initiatives. So please check out our other events. We work with IT, we work with manufacturing. We are now trying to mobilize the Norwegian public sector and involve in some rebuilding processes in Ukraine. So we are, for example, now in Warsaw to participate in Rebuild Ukraine exhibition and conference. So it's a lot of things going on. And we try to publish everything in our social media. So please check it out as well if you want to keep in touch. And I will remind you that the membership in our chamber is free for the Ukrainian companies. So if that's something you think that you want to go through to, so please let us know. Everything you need to do is just to fill out the application form on the website and attach 1-2 recommendations. Can be both with Ukrainian partners, cooperating, selling, or with international partners. Was there a question? No? All right. Then I think we'll stop here. Thank you everyone again for joining us, and let's keep in touch. I will be happy to receive your emails and requires. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank